The goal of this chapter is to give a very general introduction to the Vedic reality. It's absolutely impossible to teach you the Vedas right now, but you have to know, if you're going to learn about the Vedas, what is there to learn about, and where do you begin? And this has actually worked. I've gotten emails from people who have said, oh, I read this section, and that's what I want to be studying. Or, oh, I've read this section, and this is what I've been researching. You're not going to learn all of this, at least not right away. But it will tap you into the various facets of Vedic science that you have the possibility of going deeper within. To really be a good Vedic astrologer, you need to go deeper within at least one or two of these other sciences. One thing that Visti commented about this book, which I very much appreciated, Visti Larson, said, you're not just teaching Vedic astrology, but you're teaching people how to be a Vedic astrologer. So to be a Vedic astrologer, we have to be studying Vedic science to complement the astrology that we're doing. We have to have the full system of understanding. So this is going to introduce the most important branches and sections and things that are overlapping and heavily influencing our Jyotish. A lot of other books, they start off by saying that Vedic astrology comes from the Vedas, and there's 4 Vedas, and they give the names of the Vedas. And then they move on. As if by giving 4 names of books, which we can see right there. So these first section of books right here, those are Vedas. Now, Vedas are supposed to be eternal, unending, infinite. Do those books look infinite? Do they look eternal? So we have to really begin to understand what are the Vedas. And when people say Jyotish comes from the Vedas, what do they mean? What does it mean that this astrology is based on the Vedas? The Vedas were heard. They were not written by somebody. The universe vibrated, and seers, rishis, in deep meditation heard those vibrations and recorded those vibrations in mantras, in chants, in stories. Those mantras have multi-dimensional levels of meanings, from a physical story of a deity interacting with something to what that deity represents internally and how we interact with that, to how we work on a health level with that, to how we work on a ritual level with that. So there's multiple levels to the various mantras. So these Vedas are eternal, not in the actual mantras themselves. They are eternal based upon the knowledge that they are teaching. When you look at those books up there, those are Vedas, a bunch of books written a long time ago. Those books aren't eternal. It's the essence in them. If those books go away, the essence of them will be realized by others. It's that knowledge that it's important for us to understand, because that essence that is eternal is what Jyotish is trying to accomplish. If we look here on page 19, there's the 14 abodes of knowledge. The 4 Vedas, the 6 limbs of the Vedas, the secondary branches, and the additional Vidyasthanas. These, when people say Vedas, they are referring to all this knowledge as well. Not just the actual Vedic texts. They're referring to the 4 parts of the Vedas. Not just the 4 Vedas themselves, but each of the four Vedas have four parts of them. And it's that knowledge contained in them that is eternal. Shivananda makes a statement. Swami Shivananda, the Divine Life Society. Vedas are eternal spiritual truths. Vedas are an embodiment of divine knowledge. The books may be destroyed, but the knowledge cannot be destroyed. Knowledge is eternal. In that sense, the Vedas are eternal. That quote is on the bottom of page 20. So when we are practicing Vedic astrology, we are practicing a Vedic science that is rooted in these eternal spiritual truths. I'm going to take you slightly through some of this material, explaining how it works and why it works and the purpose of it. The first most important of these abodes of knowledge is the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda is the oldest of the Vedic texts and is considered the primary text. From our lineage of Jyotish that I come from, we are primarily based Rig Veda. The Rig Veda from the surface looks like a bunch of prayers to different deities. But those deities represent things that are in us and how those functions of consciousness in us work. The Vedas are not like spiritual texts that are telling you what's right and what is wrong. They encourage you to go inside and understand yourself, to think for yourself. One of the verses that I love the most, and that we could spend a few days just talking about this one hymn. It's the hymn of creation. And I've given it here on page 21. And we're not going to read all of it, but if we look at verse 4, so it's talking about creation and how we were created. It says, desire came upon that one in the beginning. That was the first seed of mind. So desire came upon the one. That desire is Rajas Guna. It's the movement. It's the activity for something to happen. So everything was originally one, but through Rajas it became many. And Rajas is a hot quality, just like fire under a pot of water makes the molecules leave. So the one becomes many through that heat, through that desire. Poets, seeking in their heart with wisdom, found the bond of existence in non-existence. So this is a verse talking about the creation, and all of a sudden it's talking about the poets, the seers, the rishis, who through meditation found the bond between that which exists and that which is beyond existence. It's not actually saying this is how it is. It's saying by looking within. Poets seeking in their heart with wisdom. It's not stating that we've discovered this and you have to believe it. It's saying you need to seek in your own heart with wisdom. You need to discover the link between that which is existing here and that which is beyond existence. And so again, this is the hymn of creation. Next verse. Their ray of light was extended across. Was there below? Was there above? There were seed placers. There were powers. There was impulse beneath. There was giving forth above. So this is talking about a universe and potentialities and the myriad needs of what potentialities need to be there for creation. Verse 6. Who really knows? Who will here proclaim it? Whence was it produced? Whence is this creation? The gods came afterwards with creation of the universe. Who then knows when it has arisen? Whence this creation has arisen, perhaps it formed itself, or perhaps it did not. The one who looks down on it in the highest heaven, only he knows, or perhaps he does not know. This is Vedas. Are they telling us that it's possible to know? Maybe. They're not saying that you can't know. They're not saying that you can know. They've kind of left the realm of knowing and not knowing. Seeking in your heart with wisdom. Realizing the bond between existence and non-existence. Anytime somebody comes and proclaims, this is truth, this is the way it is, they start to veer away from Vedic truths. Because right here it says, who can proclaim? You weren't there. And even avatars that come down and are incarnating in physical form, they're avatars. An avatar means a divine being that has descended. The Vedas are telling us that the creation was even before them. They weren't around before there was a creation. So how do they even know? It's moving to a deeper level where we seek within our heart that which is beyond mind knowledge. Mind knowledge is something that's finite. If you say, I know this or I know that, and you can write it down, it's a finite understanding. That knowledge which is infinite can't be put into words. It's beyond words. But what the Vedas are doing is they're guiding us in a way to get to that place. So are they telling us right or wrong, or this is that way or that is that way? It's a very open philosophy. Okay. So this next section goes through the four Vedas, explains the difference between the four Vedas, and gives verses from each, important verses from each, to give people understanding. This next section gives various quotes from the four Vedas and explaining what each Veda is, its purpose, and why they're different. The first verse that I give is the first verse of the Rig Veda. So it's the first verse of the first Veda. It's considered a very important verse. And it goes, Agni Malai Purohitam Yajnasya Devam Ritvijam Hotaram Ratnadatamam. And a loose translation is, I glorify Agni, the high priest, the radiant light, the one who invokes the devas to the sacrifice, who represents the oblation and is the possessor of the greatest gems. So that's a material level creation, a material level interpretation. So our basic level would be praying to the fire god. That's not even the most basic level. On the most basic level, the most material level, is that Agni means fire. And so when in Vedic worship, fire is very important. So all prayers are offered into the fire. And through the fire, the prayers go up into the sky and are offered to the gods. So when it says, I glorify Agni, the high priest, it's talking about the high priest, the one who this fire has the ability to offer the prayers into the heavenly realms. At the next level up, we personify the fire as an actual being, as a devata. And we see him as the high priest, who represents the oblation. We've offered something into the fire, and he carries it into the higher realms and gives it to the deities. He's actually representing it. On an internal level, Agni represents the third eye. And it's that third eye that needs to be awake. This is the light within us, the third eye. And if our third eye, if our awareness is not open, we say a prayer, it's just words. The more we open the fire in our third eye, the more we have the ability to understand what reality is. And through that third eye, when we say our prayers, we offer them to the higher realms. If we want to stay in yogic terminology, through the fire of the third eye, we offer our prayers to the higher realms of the crown chakra. Or you could say you're through the third eye offering to the higher deities, which are all represented as aspects of your being, as everything in the universe is reflected within you. So this prayer is, on one level, invoking Agni as the fire god, to offer all the next prayers, which is the entire Veda, to get to their destination, the higher realms and the deities. At the same time, it's invoking us to open our third eye, to expand our consciousness and understand that everything is God, to awaken and to realize that every prayer is a prayer to the everything which is God. So verses like this, whole books can be written about. And we could talk a whole day about it. Great saints and rishis spend entire days talking about one word in a verse like this. And Jack...
Oh yeah, Maharishi in 71. 3 nights, I think, 3-4 hours a night, he spent on Ag.
Just the first syllable of this mantra.
First syllable of Agni.
Those lectures that he gave on this verse
He
are...
did not repeat himself, by the way.
I believe it. So these verses are very deep. So a person can take a verse like this and spend years just understanding it, let alone studying the whole text in and of itself. So there's multiple directions to go with the study of the actual Rig Vedic Samhitas. The next verse I give is a verse to Saraswati. And one of the purposes of giving this verse is there's 4 different translations that I've seen. One of them is actually mine in there. And so just to see the difference in the translation, this is from the first mandala, 30th sukta, verse 12. One translation: only education can help us to understand the knowledge of the universe, which is like an ocean. It enlightens everyone's mind. Someone else's translation: Saraswati, like a great ocean, appears with her ray. She rules all inspirations. Someone else's translation: the great river, word, Saraswati comes forward into perception, illuminating all intelligence like that of a king. A fourth translation: Saraswati makes manifest by her acts a mighty river, and in her own form enlightens all understanding. So the knowledge is like a great river, pounding and awakening consciousness. Saraswati is related to the central channel, and that higher knowledge that awakens understanding and intelligence. So we can see that one verse has these manifold levels of how to come into English. One of the reasons for this is that these verses are very conceptual. So in a direct translation, it becomes very difficult. Someone might want to study the Vedas by reading a translation of them. Someone else might want to study the Vedas by reading commentaries on certain verses. There are entire books written on just one sukta that somebody can understand. So we're going to skip over the next few pages, but they're very important to read to connect to the four Vedas. And why have I given these verses? I've given these verses because some people might not get their hands on the Vedas in this lifetime. They might be that unlucky. And so at least here, there's a few important verses to read and that can help give you the vibration of that Veda. Because understanding the vibration of that Veda is very important, even just for your subtle subconscious mind.